Here's something nobody in the preparedness space wants to admit. Most of the advice out there is designed for someone with a garage, a basement, and half an acre. You know, the guy with a chest freezer the size of a Buick and a shed full of 5-gallon buckets. But what if you live in 900 square feet? What if your storage room is a coat closet that already lost the battle to winter jackets from 2014? What if the only thing between you and your neighbor is drywall and a shared opinion about parking? I spent 20 years building continuity plans for Fortune 500 companies. And here's what I can tell you. Some of the best plans I ever wrote were for offices smaller than your apartment. A 200-person operations center in Honolulu. A data center the size of a 2-bedroom condo. Space was never the problem. Thinking was the problem. So if you're in an apartment, a condo, a townhouse, a loft, whatever, and you've been told you can't really prepare because you don't have a basement, welcome to Gen X. We've been told we can't do a lot of things. We figured it out anyway. You're watching the right video. I'm Ernie. This is Prepared Not Paranoid. And today I'm going to show you how to build a real household resilience plan. No basement required. Before we talk about what to buy or where to put it, let's talk about how to think about this. Because that's where most people get stuck. In business continuity, we don't start with a shopping list. We start with a risk assessment. What's actually likely to happen? Not what's dramatic, what's probable. If you live in an apartment, your most likely disruptions are 1. Power outages. You're on the same grid as everyone else, but you probably can't run a gas generator on your balcony. Different constraints. 2. Water interruption, 1 main break, 1 boil water notice, and your building's shared system is the bottleneck, not your personal supply. 3. Shelter-in-place events. Severe weather, air quality incidents, chemical spills. You're staying put whether you planned for it or not. 4. Evacuation. Fire, flood, structural damage. You may have 90 seconds to grab what matters and get down the stairs. Notice what's not on that list? The zombie apocalypse, a 6-month grid collapse, armed marauders roaming the hallways. Look, some of us remember Y2K. We stocked up, we held our breath at midnight, and then nothing happened. And you know what? That wasn't a failure. That was preparation meeting a low probability event. The difference is the stuff we're planning for today, it happens every hurricane season, every ice storm, every water main break. We're not planning for the end of the world. We're planning for Tuesday, when the power goes out at 2 a.m. and your phone is at 11% and you can't find a flashlight. That's the plan we're building today. When I built continuity plans for corporate clients, we used a simple framework to prioritize recovery. I've adapted it for households, and it works perfectly for small space living. I call it document, function, comfort. Document. Can you prove who you are and what you own? Insurance, ID, prescriptions, contacts. If you had to evacuate tonight with 1 bag, could you reconstruct your life from what's in it? Function. Can you sustain basic operations? Water, food, light, power, sanitation. Not for 6 months, for 72 hours. That's the window where you're on your own before community resources kick in. Comfort. Can you maintain your household's physical and emotional well-being? Medications, temperature management, communication, morale. This is the one everyone forgets, and it's the one that determines whether your family holds together or falls apart on day 2. In an apartment, we're going to run every decision through this filter. If it doesn't serve document, function, or comfort, it doesn't earn the square footage. Let's start building. This is the single most important prep in your apartment. Not food, not water. This, your emergency binder. Think of it as a trapper keeper for grown-ups. Except instead of holding your algebra homework, it's holding the keys to rebuilding your life. It takes up about as much space as a hardcover novel, and it's worth more than everything else in your apartment combined if you ever have to leave in a hurry. Here's what goes in it. Copies of government-issued IDs for every household member. Insurance declarations pages, renter's insurance, auto, health, life, a medication list with dosages, prescribing doctors, and pharmacy info. Your lease agreement, because after a building fire, you're going to need it for your insurance claim and your relocation rights. Bank account numbers and contact info for your financial institutions. An out-of-area emergency contact. Someone who doesn't live in your region, who can be the family communication hub. In case of emergency contacts, pet vaccination records, if you have animals. One recent photo of each household member and each pet, because if you're ever separated during an evacuation, that photo is how first responders help. Here's the apartment-specific angle most people miss. Take a photo or video walkthrough of every room in your apartment. Open every drawer, every closet. This is your insurance documentation. If a pipe bursts 2 floors up and floods your unit, that video is the difference between a full claim payout and a fight with your adjuster. Back it up to the cloud. Back it up to a thumb drive in the binder. Do both. This binder lives by the front door. Not in a closet, not in the bedroom, by the door. Because if you smell smoke at 3 a.m., you're grabbing this on the way out. All right, let's talk about keeping the lights on and the water flowing, figuratively. In a space where you can't exactly install a 500-gallon cistern, water is non-negotiable, 1 gallon per person per day, minimum. For a 2-person household, that's 42 gallons for a 2-week supply. And I know what you're thinking. Where am I putting 42 gallons of water? You're not. Not right away. Start with 72 hours. That's 6 gallons for 2 people. 6 gallons fits under your kitchen sink. That's it. That's the starting line. Then build from there. Slim profile water containers. They make 3.5 gallon stackable jugs designed to fit in closets. 2 of those under the bed, 2 in the coat closet. You just bought yourself a week without touching your normal kitchen supply. And here's the apartment advantage nobody talks about. You have a water heater. Most apartment water heaters hold 30 to 50 gallons. If you know how to safely drain it, that's an emergency water reserve you already own. Learn where the drain valve is. Get a short hose. Practice once. Also, and this is the part most preparedness channels skip, invest in a quality water filter. A countertop gravity filter or even a good pitcher-style filter means you can make questionable water drinkable. If your building issues a boil water advisory, you're not standing in line at the grocery store with everyone else. You're already covered. Here's my approach to food storage in a small space, and it's the same principle I used in corporate continuity. Store what you rotate, rotate what you store. No one's asking you to fill a bedroom with freeze-dried buckets. You're building a deep pantry, extra of what you already eat, tucked into the space you already have. Canned soups, canned proteins like tuna and chicken, pasta, rice, peanut butter, oatmeal, high-calorie, shelf-stable, stuff you'd eat on a normal Tuesday. The apartment-specific strategy is vertical and hidden. Top shelves of closets, under the bed in flat bins. Behind the couch, if you've got a console table, the back of a deep cabinet. And here's the mindset shift. You don't need a year of food, you need 7 to 14 days. After that, community resources, FEMA, mutual aid networks, and they kick in. Your job is to bridge the gap without panic, without standing in a distribution line on day 1, without depending on a system that's also trying to get its footing. One thing the other preparedness channels do get right. Don't forget a manual can opener. I know it sounds obvious, but I've watched corporate disaster recovery exercises fall apart over things exactly that simple. The generator worked fine. Nobody brought the extension cord. MacGyver could build a radio out of a paper clip and chewing gum, but even he'd be stuck staring at a can of soup without an opener. Always think about the connector between the prep and the use. Power in an apartment is a different game. You're not running a generator. In most apartments you can't. Lease restrictions, ventilation issues, fire codes, it's off the table. And honestly, for those of us who grew up as latchkey kids making our own dinner by age 10, solving problems with limited resources isn't new. We've been training for this since 1986. What you need is targeted power for targeted needs. Priority 1, keep your phone charged. A quality power bank, 20,000 milliamp hours or more, will charge your phone 4 to 5 times. That's your communication lifeline, your flashlight, your access to emergency alerts. One power bank, charged and ready, in a drawer by your bed. Priority 2, if anyone in your household uses a medical device, CPAP, nebulizer, anything, you need a portable power station. This is the one area where I'd tell you to invest real money. A 500 watt-hour unit will run a CPAP for 2 to 3 nights. That's not a luxury. That's a medical necessity. Priority 3, light. LED headlamps, not candles. You live in a space with shared walls, limited ventilation, and smoke detectors that should be working. A battery-powered lantern for the common area, a headlamp for each person in the household. Done. Remember those solar-powered garden path lights? The ones your neighbor has lining their balcony? Those are actually a genius apartment hack. Set them outside during the day, bring them in at night. Free renewable light. No batteries, no fire risk. Your HOA thinks you're decorating. You're actually prepping. This is the topic nobody wants to talk about, but it's the one that will make or break your shelter-in-place experience. Sanitation. If your building loses water pressure, and in a high-rise, that can happen with a single pump failure. Your toilet doesn't flush. That's not an inconvenience. In a 900 square foot apartment with 2 people, that becomes a health hazard within 24 hours. The solution is low-tech and takes up almost no space. A 5-gallon bucket with a snap-on toilet seat lid, a box of heavy-duty trash bags, a bag of kitty litter, or a container of enzyme-based waste treatment powder. That's it. The whole system stores inside the bucket. The bucket stores in a closet. Total footprint, 1 square foot. Also, stock baby wipes and hand sanitizer. If the water's off, you're not taking a shower, but you can stay clean enough to stay healthy. And grab a pack of disinfecting wipes for surfaces, doorknobs, countertops, the bathroom. Hygiene is how you keep a short-term inconvenience from becoming a medical emergency. I've seen corporate disaster shelters, the ones companies set up for employees during extended outages. And the number one complaint is never the food, it's always the bathrooms. Plan for this. You'll be glad you did. Here's where I break from almost every preparedness channel out there. They'll spend 45 minutes on bug-out bags and never mention the thing that actually determines whether your household weathers a crisis or cracks under pressure. Comfort, morale, emotional continuity. In business continuity, we call this people recovery. You can have the best systems in the world, but if your people are panicking, exhausted, or fighting with each other, your plan fails. Same thing at home. So here's your comfort checklist for an apartment. Temperature management. Extra blankets and warm layers for winter outages. A battery-powered fan for summer. In an apartment, you're insulated by your neighbor's units, which is actually an advantage. Interior apartments hold temperature better than houses. Use it. Medication continuity. If anyone in your household takes daily medication, keep a 7-day backup supply in your emergency binder area. Talk to your doctor and your pharmacy about how to do this. Most will work with you. Entertainment and normalcy. This one sounds silly until you're sitting in the dark on hour 14 with no Wi-Fi. A deck of cards, a few paperback books, a battery-powered radio, not just for emergency broadcasts, but for the psychological comfort of hearing another human voice. Remember when you were a kid and the power went out and your mom lit every candle in the house and your dad dug out that transistor radio from the junk drawer? Maybe you played Yahtzee by candlelight, or your older sister told ghost stories that were way too scary for your little brother, and somehow it was the best night of the week. We can recreate that feeling. Calm, resourceful, even a little bit fun. That's what preparedness actually looks like. Not a bunker, not a panic room. A household that says, yeah, the power's out, we're fine, who wants to play Uno? Before we wrap up, I want to flip the script on something. Everyone treats apartment living as a disadvantage for preparedness. But after 20 years in this field, I can tell you, apartments have real advantages that homeowners don't. Shared walls mean shared insulation. Your heating and cooling costs during an outage are lower than a standalone house because you've got climate-controlled neighbors on every side. You're basically freeloading. Off their thermostat, you're welcome. Smaller space means faster assessment. After an earthquake or severe storm, you can do a full damage walkthrough in 2 minutes. A homeowner with a crawl space, an attic, and a detached garage, they're still looking an hour later. Community density. In an apartment building, you've got 20, 50, maybe 200 neighbors within shouting distance. That's a built-in mutual aid network if you've built even basic relationships. And look, our generation didn't grow up with play dates, scheduled 6 weeks in advance. We knocked on the neighbor's door and figured it out. Same energy applies here. Evacuation simplicity. 1 door, 1 go bag, 1 route to the stairwell. No garage to clear, no outbuildings to secure, no well pump to shut down. You're out the door in 60 seconds. Try doing that with a 3-car garage and a she shed. The guy with the homestead and the 10-acre spread, he's got great storage, but he's also got 10 acres of vulnerability. You've got 900 square feet of focused, intentional preparedness. That's not a weakness, that's efficiency. All right, here's your one action this week. I promised you something concrete, and here it is. Walk through your apartment right now, or tonight when you get home, with your phone camera recording. Open every closet, every cabinet, every drawer. Film your belongings, your electronics, your furniture. Upload that video to cloud storage, Google Drive, iCloud, Dropbox. I don't care which one, just not only on your phone. You've just created your insurance inventory. It took you 10 minutes. It cost you nothing. And if your apartment floods, catches fire, or gets damaged in a storm, that video could be worth tens of thousands of dollars to your claim. That's step 1. The emergency binder is step 2. Your 72-hour supply kit is step 3. We're building this one step at a time. No panic, no $1,000 shopping spree, just steady progress. You don't need a basement to be prepared. You don't need a bunker, a bug-out location, or a year's supply of freeze-dried anything. You need a plan. You need 72 hours of the basics. And you need the right mindset. Calm, capable, and ready for Tuesday. I'm Ernie. This is Prepared, Not Paranoid. Build the plan, skip the panic. If this helped you, hit subscribe and check out my video, The 72-Hour Kit That Actually Works, for the complete supply breakdown. I'll see you in the next one.